Hey, I'm John, I greeted, the autumn sun filtering through the tall oak trees, casting playful shadows over our expansive family property. The air hummed with the chatter of relatives, and the smell of roasting meat and freshly baked pies filled the breeze. It was the day of our annual family reunion. My wife, Anna, stood next to me, glowing and heavily pregnant, effortlessly moving through the crowd as relatives arrived in waves. "Isn't it just perfect having everyone here?" Anna asked, giving my hand a gentle squeeze as she scanned the crowd. "It really is," I answered, smiling, "but stay close, you know how mom can get," I whispered, nodding toward my mother, Helen, as she moved through the crowd with a critical gaze, always observing. As the day passed, the usual small talk gave way to more meaningful discussions. My upbeat sister-in-law, Julia, joined us near the garden, offering a welcome distraction from my mother's increasingly watchful stare. "John, I heard about that big case you're handling. Sounds intense," Julia remarked, clearly trying to shift the focus of the conversation. "It is, but honestly, it's nothing compared to navigating family dynamics," I replied with a chuckle. I glanced back at Mom, standing with a group of aunts. Her sharp eyes flickered toward us every so often. Anna noticed, her expression tightening. "I wish she'd just speak her mind instead of silently judging," Anna muttered. "This quiet disapproval is exhausting. She acts like she knows what's best." I sighed, the weight of her words hanging in the air. As the sun sank lower, the crowd gathered around the long dinner table set up in the yard. The sound of clinking silverware mixed with conversations, glasses raised in toasts. It was almost perfect, except for Mom, who chose to sit directly across from us. "John, I hope you're finding time for Anna with everything going on," Helen said, her voice sharp enough to stop a few people mid-bite. "Mom, Anna's doing well," I assured her, gently placing my hand on Anna's. "Yes, Helen, I'm perfectly fine, but I appreciate your concern," Anna replied, her voice polite but firm. Helen's lips tightened, her fork hovering in the air. "Well, with the baby on the way, you can't be too careful. I was just reading an article about how important it is for expectant mothers to avoid stress." "Really?" Anna responded, her tone steady but resolute. "I'm fine. Julia's been a huge help, and I'm grateful for her." Julia, picking up on the cue, flashed a bright smile. "Absolutely, and wait until you see the nursery we've been working on. John, why don't you show Mom the pictures?" As dinner continued, Helen's comments grew sharper, disguised criticisms about Anna's diet and decision to keep working late in her pregnancy. The tension around the table thickened, relatives exchanging uneasy glances. Finally, I stood and raised my glass. "I'd like to propose a toast to family, both by blood and by bond. May we always support one another, no matter the circumstances." Glasses clinked in agreement, and for a brief moment, the mood lightened, but Helen's tight smile as she sipped her wine reminded me that peace, tonight, was fleeting. As night fell and dessert was served, the warmth of the reunion faded into a lingering sense of unease. The earlier laughter and stories quieted, replaced by nervous shuffling as we moved indoors for dessert. "Anna, you've got to try the lemon tart Julia's been going on about," Aunt Margie said, her cheerful voice slicing through the tension. "I'm sure it's delicious," Anna replied, linking arms with Julia as they ascended the staircase. But behind them, Helen's gaze narrowed, mistaking Julia for Anna due to their similar dresses. Her steps quickened, driven by a mix of resentment and misplaced protectiveness. "I need to talk to you now," Helen's voice, urgent and sharp, sliced through the air, but it was Julia who turned. "Helen, I think you should leave," Julia began, but before she could finish, Helen acted impulsively, shoving her, sending Julia tumbling down the stairs. The sickening sound of her fall was followed by horrified gasps and a heavy thud. "Julia!" Anna screamed, rushing to her side as the family stood frozen in shock. Helen stood at the top, pale as she realized the gravity of her actions. I pushed through the stunned crowd, my legal instincts kicking in amid the personal horror. "Call an ambulance now," I barked, kneeling beside Julia to assess her injuries. "Why would you do this, Helen?" Anna's voice wavered between fury and fear. "She's your niece." Helen's hands fluttered, her words stumbling out. "I thought she was you. I just wanted to talk." By pushing her down the stairs? My voice was cold, searching her eyes for some rational explanation. As Julia was rushed to the hospital, the house fell silent, the weight of what had just happened settling heavily over us. I took Helen aside, my voice strained with disbelief and authority. "What is going on, Mom? That wasn't just out of line. It was dangerous." What did you think Aita was going to do? Helen wrung her hands, her voice barely a whisper. It's all those talk shows and articles. They say some women trap men with pregnancies. I thought she was manipulating you. I stared at her, dumbfounded. Manipulating Aita? She's my wife, Mom. We're having this baby together. How could you think that about her? I got scared, Helen muttered, her eyes downcast, seeing her, or who I thought was her. It just all came rushing back. I ran a hand through my hair, struggling to reconcile the mother I knew with the woman standing before me, consumed by irrational fear. Anna needs me, Julia needs justice, we're going to deal with this, but right now, I can't even look at you. I turned away, walking back to Anna, who was standing by the door, her eyes red and swollen as we awaited news on Julia's condition. My resolve hardened. The night, once full of joy, was now tainted by a misunderstanding that nearly cost someone their life. At the hospital, the sterile hum of fluorescent lights echoed down the corridor as I paced outside Julia's room. Inside, Anna sat at her sister's bedside, holding her hand as the rhythmic beeping of medical monitors filled the room. The events of the night weighed heavily on my mind as I considered what had to be done next. Just then, I returned from the security office, holding a USB drive, small but packed with undeniable evidence. I've reviewed the CCTV footage from the house, John said, his voice calm yet firm. It's clear that Helen mistook Julia for you and pushed her. No second thoughts. Anna's voice wavered. Why would she do that, John? It just doesn't add up. It wasn't a mistake, Anna, he replied, his gaze steady. She truly thought she was pushing you. It's twisted, but the evidence is right there. Dr. Simmons entered at that moment, his expression grim. Julia's stable, but she has a concussion and a broken leg. Her recovery will be long. John nodded, keeping his composure. Thank you, doctor. Can we have a moment alone? The doctor left, and John turned to Anna. I need to show you something. It's not easy, but you need to see how far this went. They sat down and watched the footage on John's laptop. The grainy black and white video revealed the horrifying truth, Julia's fall. Anna gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, tears filling her eyes. Oh God, John, she really thought it was me. John squeezed her hand, his voice steady but filled with resolve. I've been thinking, we can't let this slide. Julia deserves justice, and we need to make sure you and the baby are safe. Anna looked at him, her voice trembling. What are you saying? I'm saying that my mother has to face the consequences, John said firmly. I'm pressing charges. But she's your mother, John. Do you think we can really go through with this? John's gaze was unwavering. If we don't, then what? She almost killed Julia. What if next time it's you or our child? Anna nodded, her own resolve solidifying. You're right. It's just hard. I know, John said softly, squeezing her hand, but it's necessary. Later, John made calls to the family attorney, outlining the situation with unwavering resolve. I understand the consequences, but I can't let this go. She has to be held accountable. In the hospital room, Anna's phone buzzed with a message from Michael, who had just heard about the incident. Is it true what happened? Is Julia okay? Anna replied quickly, explaining what had occurred and John's decision. Michael responded immediately. You have our full support. This is unimaginable, but it's the right thing to do. John returned to the room and placed a comforting hand on Anna's shoulder. The lawyer's on board, he said quietly but with assurance. In the days that followed, legal preparations began. We'll move forward as soon as Julia can give her statement, John said to Anna. The next few days passed in a blur of legal talks and tense family meetings. Some relatives couldn't believe Helen's actions, while others condemned her. John found himself drifting away from people he'd once been close to. The rifts seemed too deep to repair. One evening, while sitting in the hospital cafeteria, Anna reached for John's hand. No matter what happens, we're in this together, right? Right, together, John replied, his voice steady, his grip firm. As they headed back to Julia's room, John glanced between Anna and Julia, steeling himself for what lay ahead. The truth was coming to light, and the family, once unbreakable, was now irreparably cracked. The courtroom was tense, filled with the rustle of papers and murmurs. Helen sat stiffly beside her lawyer, her eyes forward. Across the room, John stood with Anna, bracing himself for the moment his mother would face justice. The judge entered, and the room went silent. This court is now in session, the judge's voice echoed. The prosecutor stood, her voice clear and resolute. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we are here today to address a grave act of violence that could have ended in tragedy. We will show that Helen acted not out of confusion, but malice, endangering the life of her niece, Julia, whom she believed to be her daughter-in-law, Anna. Helen's lawyer rose to respond, his voice calm but defensive. We acknowledge the gravity of the situation, but we argue that this was a misunderstanding fueled by concern, not an intent to harm. The trial proceeded, with witnesses recounting the events of that fateful night. Anna took the stand, her voice steady but filled with emotion. I never thought we'd end up here, facing such a heartbreaking family divide. Julia was mistaken for me, and it wasn't an accident. It was intentional. Then came the pivotal moment, the CCTV footage. The prosecutor played the video, and the courtroom gasped as the images revealed Helen pushing Julia. John stood frozen, torn between his role as a son and as an attorney. Every frame of the video felt like a personal blow. When it was John's turn to testify, he spoke of his mother's growing resentment and paranoia. It hurts me deeply, but I have to stand for what's right. My mother's actions were deliberate and dangerous. Finally, Helen spoke, her voice trembling. I thought I was protecting my son. I thought there was a threat to his future, to our family's honor. I'm sorry, I truly am, but it was a mistake. The jury didn't deliberate long. The evidence was undeniable. The judge soon read the verdict. Based on the evidence presented, the jury finds Helen guilty of aggravated assault. The judge sentenced her to probation and a restraining order to protect Anna and her unborn child. The weight of the decision hung heavy in the courtroom. Outside the courthouse, John and Anna stood together, the tension of the past week slowly lifting. Anna looked up at John, her eyes a mixture of sorrow and relief. It's over, but how do we move on from here? John squeezed her hand, his voice steady and resolute. We rebuild, together. We focus on our future, on our family. We'll make sure our child grows up in love, not bitterness. Their commitment to each other and their future child remained unshaken, even as they navigated the aftermath of a family fractured by fear and misunderstanding. And that's where their story ends. A long, difficult journey, but one that forces us to ask, if you were in John's shoes, would you press charges against a family member to uphold justice, or would you seek another way to resolve things to preserve family ties? It's a tough decision, balancing moral duty with family loyalty. What would you do? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.